Welcome, OD professionals, to the second part of my two-part series on setting expectations. Last time, I taught you a four-part script to clearly say what you want to see happen. If you follow that script, you can be confident that you've clearly spoken the information they need. What you don't know is what they heard and how bought in they are to achieve your new expectation. We'll cover that in today's video. Let's get started. So you see behind me a flip chart that has four questions that we'll want to make part of our conversation. Before we get into what those questions actually are, I'd like to point to you a couple of things. One is, this is an expectations dialogue. It is meant to be back and forth, not just a one-way conversation. In the previous video, we told you what you need to communicate in a way that was pretty much one way. You're telling them what you need to see from them in terms of quality. You're giving them the reason why this is important, and so forth. Now we want to turn it into a conversation that's back and forth between us. The second thing that I want to point out to you is that I'm asking you to use open questions. These are the ones that begin with what, how, when, where, why. And they're called open because the range of response is open to you as the responder. I, the questioner, am not limiting that range by how I ask the question. The opposite to open questions, of course, are closed questions, which begin with words like will and do. The most obvious form of a closed question is that requires the response of a yes or no. Honey, did you take out the trash? Is an example of a closed question. Honey, when are you going to take out the trash? Is an open question. Open questions promote real thought and real dialogue. So they're our tool of choice as we engage people to set expectations. A few moments ago, I mentioned that what you do know is that you've already told them the information that they need in order to move forward. What you don't know is what they heard and how bought in they are to now move forward and achieve the expectation that you set. That's where you go with your questioning. So to begin, you're going to use open questions to determine what they understand. If in the example that I used last week, I talked about how we were going to keep a cleaner shop, and I gave you certain standards of my definition of cleanliness as your supervisor. So one of the things I might ask might be, what is my definition of cleanliness? What needs to be cleaned up, moved? When will I be coming by to check? What I'm pointing back to are the same main points that I walked you through in the first part of the conversation, and now I'm just checking to hear it. I'm using open questions. I'm not closed. A closed question would give you the answer. So I'll be coming around at 5 o'clock, won't I? All you have to do is nod your head. What we want to hear instead is, what do you remember? So when will I be coming around to check? Those are examples of questions I might use to determine what they understand. And I'm listening for the same key points that I taught them just a short while ago. If I hear something different, I can correct it right there in the moment. This is my opportunity. At the conclusion of this first set of questions, we should be on the same page about what the expectation itself is, why it's important, what quality standards apply, and how we'll both know the degree of success that we're achieving in meeting that expectation. So we'll be on the same page after this question. Now, the second set of questions, you want to use open question to determine what challenges they foresee. Many leaders skip this step, partly because they don't want to get into it. They don't want to discourage the person. They think it may be a waste of time. But think about it. Anytime you ask someone to increase their level of performance, they've got other things that they're doing. So there's going to be ways that they're going to have to readjust and move. There's going to be challenges to change their way of going about their work. When do you want to find out about those challenges? On the front end, before they get started, so you can think about it and talk about it together? Or afterwards, when you're coming up and saying, how come this wasn't done the way I explained it to you? And then they say, oh, well, yeah, something came up. Now, I'm not saying they're making excuses. What I'm saying is you want them to think, with your assistance, to think about those challenges on the front end and to begin to put together their game plan for meeting those challenges. A challenge doesn't mean the expectation changes. A challenge just means, oh, that's something you'll have to overcome as you go about meeting my expectation. All right, now, once you get to that point, okay, now we understand really, as the worker, the kind of work that's needed. Not only do I need to meet the expectation, I need to overcome these challenges. Now you step in and you want them to think through what kind of support they will need. So how are you going to get that tool that you need? Oh, you need assistance from someone else. What kind of communication? How are you going to arrange that so that you and that person are on the same page? You're prompting them to think through and develop their game plan to overcome the challenges that they identified in the previous step. Finally, and we don't know how long actually these take. This can be kind of an involved conversation, particularly if this is a new expectation. This really raises the level of performance to heights that they haven't achieved in the past. So it may go on for a time, but once you cover these three, you are then ready to uncover what is their degree of commitment. Or as been told in sales language, you got to ask for the sale. At the end of the time, you've talked to them. Here's what I want to see. Let's make sure we're on the same page. Let's uncover those challenges and design our game plan. Now, are we ready to go? Now, this is the one. These three, I want you to use open questions for all the time to get them thinking. But if we're on the same page here and you want to use a closed question like, are we ready to go? You have everything you need? Are we good? That's the kind of question that you can use to determine their level of commitment. Use these four. You're going to use open questions in each of these areas. And by the time you get through it, people will be ready to meet your expectations. Thanks for watching today's video on setting expectations, the second in our two-part series. Many leaders struggle with this, as simple as it is, and yet this is what our employees, our people need in order to do their best work. They need for us to clarify what is most important and then to lay it out for them in ways that they can understand, where they can think through the issues, where they know they have the support that's needed in order to begin to do the work. Once people know what you really expect, their level of performance improve, your productivity as a department will improve. So take it to heart, practice it. Feel free to walk down and develop your own script where you jot yourself some notes when you're having this conversation with your people. No shame in having notes. If you know of leaders who could benefit from this, go ahead and share the link to this video so that they can also begin to grow in that most important leadership skill. If I can help in any way, reach out to me through my contact page. Until next time, be well.